Special guest today, Al Guido, president of the 49ers. And, before we came on air here, I was joking around. I like my background. It's a nice background. For the first time, we've got somebody with a nicer background. Al, joining us from, where are you now? New York City?
New York City, Dave. It's good to be on. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show. It's obviously an exciting time for 49ers fans on a whole bunch of different levels. The draft is going to be happening next week, but there's been a lot of business news surrounding the 49ers. And you have some personal news as well. I saw you down in Palm Beach at the owners' meetings a couple weeks ago. I didn't even realize at the time that you had just tweeted the announcement of your foundation, the Guido Family Foundation. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you're working on there and what the goal of the foundation will be?
Well, thank you so much. It was good to see you in Florida. And it's a special time for me and my family. I know we're going to talk about this, but I'm getting ready to run the Boston Marathon. But as I was thinking about nonprofits to raise money for 49ers, of course, came to mind, and all the things that the York family is doing in the Bay Area. But really, on one run that I was on, to me, it was like all the things that I've been able to do in my life are really through the power of sport. David, we don't cover this a lot, but I grew up in New Jersey. My father was a truck driver. My mother was an administrator. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Frankly, I started at a community college. I didn't have the means, or I didn't think that I could afford a 4-year education or a 4-year university. And to me, a lot of people helped me throughout my time, whether they were coaches or teachers, or frankly, getting enough financial aid to even be able to go to school. And then when I got out of school, I immediately went into the sports world, and I didn't really know what the business of sports was. I was just a sports fan, right? I mean, I watched SportsCenter all day and night. I could recite every single line. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, and football. I played football in college at a small Division III school. And so it's just, to me, I met my wife through sports. My kids, I love going to sports. I see you every Thursday, Sunday, or Monday as it relates to sports. And honestly, I went home, I told my wife, I said, look, there are so many kids who are in my sort of predicament, which is they want to go on to university, but they might not have the means, or they don't think they have the support, and they love sports and they want to find their way into this great world that you and I get to work in. And it just became clear that I felt like I had the right to give back, that it was important to my daughters and my wife that we do that. I have a tremendous amount of friends and family that have helped me raise a significant amount of money, in which we intend to give back to kids to fill the financial gap that they see when they apply and they get accepted into a university. And whether that's a sports management program or whether that's live entertainment and media like you do, I just think there's so many people out there right now that they don't know what they don't know, and they're not given a chance. And I was given a chance, and I never in my life dreamed far enough to think that I could sit on a team and be a president of the San Francisco 49ers. And if not for those individuals along every single one of my journeys, I wouldn't be here. And it just felt important for me to give back.
Well, what you said resonates so much with me, because I think just knowledge and opportunity is huge. When I entered college, I had dreamt of being a sports broadcaster, sports writer for essentially all 18 years of my life. But stepping foot on a college campus, I didn't think that was going to be my career path, because I had no idea how to pursue it. I thought it was just something that you dream of, but never actually get to do, because you had to be born into certain circles to do that. So I figured I'd just be a lawyer or something. And then my roommate came to me my freshman year and said that he was at one of those extracurricular activity fairs, and there was a student radio station. And he said, you can actually broadcast games for the student radio station and be on the radio, like broadcast it was at Stanford. So I think I started with Stanford softball. And at that moment, this light clicked in my head, and I realized, oh my goodness, there actually is a path to work in sports. And obviously I took that path, and the rest is history. And now we intersect with the 49ers. But I think it's really cool what you're doing because, obviously financial assistance, but just awareness, like showing young people how they can get from point A to point B, I think is a huge part of the battle. At least in my case, it was, because I literally had no idea how to take this path until there was an opportunity presented to me. And the more opportunities there are, the more students will discover them.
Well, thank you, David. I was the same. I mean, I literally was going to community college, Camden County Community College, and I was actually going to go to the military. My grandfather served on both sides of my family, and I had this deep respect, still do, for people that serve our country. And to me, I was drawn to it. I also knew that there was some financial benefit to doing it, and I would get out and then I would go to school. And one day my aunt decided, she was like, "Hey, why don't you come to go see your cousin play a football game?" And so I did. And the head coach came out after the game in the parking lot. And you see this when you cover our team, all the families are waiting for the players as they come out. And I came out, or the coach came out, and I was waiting for my cousin. The coach said, "Hey, Al, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, coach, I'm going to community college." And he's like, "Well, how's it going?" I said, "Well, it's going great. My grades are fantastic." He said, "Well, what are you going to do next?" I said, "Well, actually, I'm going to go to the military." He goes, "Well, have you thought about, coming here?" And I said, "Coach, I don't know that my family or I can afford this or I would get in." He's like, "Well, do you want to play football, or do you want to come to the school?" I said, "I love this school." And he said, "Do me a favor. Why don't you apply? And then do me another favor. Why don't you go see the financial aid office and have them answer some questions for you to see whether or not you can get in?" And the rest, David, changed my life. Within a month or two, I got a letter that accepted me into the college. And then I was sort of off and running. And then, you go through these things, as you mentioned, in your life where you don't know that they're there until you know, or until someone else tells you. And I started off as a financial advisor, but I didn't love it. Like, I was not passionate about what I was doing. I was doing it because I thought that's what I should do. And my dad, one day, he drove up to a restaurant. I was working as a waiter just to kind of make ends meet, right? I was getting out of college. I was working during the day. I was working at night. And my dad, in the days of printing a classified ad, had a classified ad from the Philadelphia Inquirer that said the Philadelphia 76ers were hiring for salespeople.
Mm.
And I'll never forget, I showed up. It was a 1,500 person job fair. I knew nothing about the business of sports outside of, like, sure, people bought tickets and they showed up. And I wound up getting a $6 an hour telemarketing job out of the basement of the Philadelphia Spectrum.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, when I sold my first ticket, I was hooked. And so much of it was because I didn't really feel like a job. I just got to talk about sports on the phone with someone else. I was talking hoops, 76ers hoops, to like friends and family. They might as well have been friends and family. They were just fans. And I just knew right then and there, like, this is what I want to do with my life. And throughout it, I've just been blessed to be at different organizations that cared for me as a human being. And now the last 15 years with the 49ers in multiple capacities. And I've seen what the power of sport can do. It can bring communities together. We see that every single Sunday in our building. It can provide opportunities to people through the use of the brand. We've seen that with the York and the 49ers Foundation and what that's meant to people in the classroom. And so this was my own personal way and my family's way of giving back to something that's meant so much to me and given me the opportunities that I've had.
It all really can come full circle, and in many ways, that is the most gratifying path that you can take. Right, once you've gotten to a position where you can help, where again, it's not only financial; it's about those connections that you can help make, the opportunities that you can illuminate. So I salute that. Guido Family Foundation. Where can people go check it out before we move on to talking about some other things? I don't want to forget about this. I know that I discovered this through your Twitter feed or your X feed right now, but where can people look up more about the Guido Family Foundation?
So go to guidofamilyfoundation.org. You'll learn about the mission of what we're trying to do and who we're trying to support. I'm proud to say that, my alma mater and my wife's alma mater are already signed up. I'm blessed to, on one side of my ledger, which is my company called Elevate, which does a lot of sports marketing. We work on behalf of 90 different universities across the U.S., across all different kind of conferences. And so we look forward to partnering with all of those people to provide grants and support for those systems. But go to GuidoFamilyFoundation.org and look, anything you can give is certainly greatly appreciated. My family will match all donations that come in. And so thank you, David, for one, seeing it, acknowledging it, and providing me the platform to talk to people about it.
Of course, I think 49ers fans will be happy to hop all over that. We talk about how busy you are right now. That's the Elevate office, right, that you're in right now in New York. And you also have got some offices, I believe, in Nashville, where I happen to be right now. Do a lot of work over here. We talk about all the improvements that you're making with the 49ers right now and the facilities. We're going to delve deep into that. But I just want to take a step back, since you're kind of going through your early career path. Before the 49ers, you're with the Cowboys, where you were instrumental in getting that palace built, right? Big stadium in Dallas. Then obviously Levi's with the 49ers. You're helping, I think, consulting, right, in a consulting role, what the Titans have been doing in Nashville. I mean, what's the top takeaway that you've learned through dealing with big time stadium projects over the years?
I mean, they're such a transformational moment in any franchise, and they've changed. Like, the risk profile has changed dramatically, just from a cost perspective of just, in the early 2000s, not to bore the audience, but there was a big stadium boom in the National Football League. That's when the Steelers' new venue came on, the Eagles came on, the Ravens came on, and those were a couple $100 million. Now you're talking about $1 billion buildings, and, in LA's case, $5 billion plus building. And so just the sophistication level that's needed to pull these off, and to make sure that they are hits for the community, is just, it's just dramatically more challenging than it once was. And so, look, I've worked in every North America major pro sport, and there's different call it strengths and weaknesses to each one of these sports, right? The NFL is beyond powerful, and we talk about the media and the eyeballs, and frankly, the ability to take, to go from worst to first in a lot of ways, is very different than other sports because of the economic model of the salary cap and the way that we share media dollars. And so what I found, David, is that, and getting back a little bit into sort of like why I want to get back, is because I do think there's no better time, at least in my lifetime, which is 20 plus years in sports, to be involved in pro sports, because it's just dramatic. Like, I used to say that really the business of sports was no different than movie theaters. You would put the showtime up, and instead of the movie showtime, it would just be the game time. That eventually people would go to the box office and buy tickets, that you would then buy your popcorn or your hot dog or your drink, and that's what you would do. And right now, you still do that, don't get me wrong, but the sophistication is just very different, right? How people consume our media, the social digital channels. Obviously, you cover this dramatically. Our athletes have changed in a lot of ways, right? And I'm speaking to the 49ers fans, but also Bay Area fans who follow you. Think about what Steph Curry and his brand has meant, and the things that they're interested in outside of just the game of sports. And so, to me, when I got to the 49ers, we were probably, I don't know, about 100 plus people within our organization, and now you're 400 plus, right? And so, and there's reasons for that. Some of that is the stadium, right? In Candlestick, because it was an older, non-renovated building, we didn't get to host other events like concerts and Super Bowls and World Cups. And now you're doing all of those things. You have development projects. If you look at what Chase Center's done with Joe Lacob under his leadership and Thrive City. So there's just more opportunities, whether it's media, whether it's, sales and marketing, whether it's general and administrative, which is finance, or whether it's real estate, which comes in the form of stadium. There's just a plethora of opportunities around the sports ecosystem that is dramatically shifted from the time that I got into the business to now.
And I'm sure, since you've have plenty of experience doing this, one of the realizations and one of the realities that you deal with is that even once a place is built, improvement, construction really never ends, because you have to make sure that it's like an arms race. You have to make sure that it stays up to date. And Levi's is getting $200 million of renovations this offseason, I think, between the stadium and the practice facility, right?
That's exactly right, David. So we, $250-ish million is being poured into the building to enhance the fan experience.
Hmm.
And, obviously give the York family a lot of credit. The majority of that is coming in private dollars. And so for me, like, if I'm a 49ers fan, it's just the so what of that. Well, look, it's important for us. The hero feature needs to remain the hero feature, and that's what happens on the field. We get that. That is goal number one, priority number one, to put the best team possible on the field so that we can one day hopefully hoist, or get that sixth Lombardi trophy in the case. The other side of that is making sure that we invest in the fans and the experience and we make that better. And, I like to say that we had our bumps in year one and year two. It's always hard moving into a new venue. But that we really found our footing that has become a home field advantage. And that speaks to our win-loss record in the building. And so in August, what you're going to see is, for the most part, almost a new building. You're going to see new scoreboards, new LEDs, new fan activation zones, new concession stands. Everything to the seats in the building are brand new. And so our hope is that gives us an advantage, frankly, in market where fans still want to come and that they feel invested in. But at the same time, that while 49ers football is goal and priority number one, we do have a right and a purpose as a region to not cede large scale events to other markets. We should all be very proud of where we live and the fact that there was not a Super Bowl hosted in the Bay Area between 1984 at Stanford and the one that we hosted in Super Bowl 50. We can't let that happen again. And so I'm proud that I sit on a committee with the other presidents of all the other sports teams and that we are working aggressively to bring marquee events to the Bay Area. We just did it with the NBA All-Star Game. We're now going to do it with Super Bowl 60. We're going to follow that up with the World Cup. And that has tremendous impact. And, I know our fans care about this deeply. Like, we need to be aggressive, and like what we've given back to the region in economic benefit and jobs coming out of COVID, like, we're seeing the recovery happen. And I think sports is a big part of it. You saw that with the All-Star game. If you're a Warriors fan or a Niners fan, you just saw the activation. You saw what Charles Barkley had to say on TV, which is like, hey, San Francisco's coming back. And now you're about to see that, where if I'm a 49ers fan, and I hope you're proud that our stadium that you're a fan of, our region, is going to be the only city ever to host a Super Bowl and a World Cup in the same year. And that does not happen without the investments in the building. Frankly, it doesn't happen without the brand visibility of the 49ers. And it doesn't happen without, the public-private partnerships that we have in the region to help us go get these large-scale events.
What exactly will the scoreboard upgrades look like? Because I got a quick peek. I was walking to the media room the other day, and there was a ton of construction equipment out on the field. I think I saw you speaking at the Super Bowl about just the grandeur of what's going to happen. Can you explain what that layout, or maybe preview what that layout might look like once fans are able to step into the stadium this year?
Think about the best way for me to describe it is in simple terms, which is it's the two largest scoreboards from a square footage in the entire National Football League.
So is this going to rival Dallas then?
Oh yeah, the total square footage. So yeah, they have
Okay,
one bigger board, but if you just think about total square footage
got
of,
it.
call it, video boards, I think it rivals Jacksonville for some of our fans who went down there. Patriots put a new one in, but it's substantial in the amount of the size difference. And what it would mean is, from a fan perspective, we all love the National Football League and replays, frankly, data and information that's on the scoreboard. Kyle's even weighing in as to what he wants to see on the scoreboard to give us, whatever competitive advantage we can get. I think we all know for home games, our team does a great job in the broadcast booth of making sure any controversial calls get replayed pretty quickly on that scoreboard, which gives Kyle an advantage to, throw challenge flags, etc. But it also does add, it acts as a hype up, right? People love the walkout. People love the hype videos throughout it, and it helps fans engage, frankly, with the team. And I will say, David, it's not just in the last, call it 7-8 years, it's really been impactful to see not just how much Levi's has become a home field, but what it's been on the road. And to me, like I've heard Fred say this, like I've heard all of our players say this, like the faithful, they're real. Like it is a real thing, whether at Levi's or whether on the road. And for me, I just think that, our fans should have the best. We're going to try and make Levi's, yes, it will get older, but if we can keep it up to par with all the other stadiums that are being opened and make sure that we continue to invest in it, then we're doing our jobs.
So I have a favorite in-game memory of you. I think I've told you about this, and I've seen the picture. I've seen the video multiple times. I've sent the video to you, but there's a still photo that's epic. 2019, believe it was in November. That was like an adrenaline rush of a run, right, for the 49ers. Jeff Wilson Jr. scores a touchdown with, I don't know, 30 seconds to go. Wasn't a lot of time left. And you're in the end zone and you're levitating. You're out the ground by 3 or 4 feet. I don't know what is your vertical leap. It's got to be good. You're about to run a marathon, but it was very high on this one particular shot. You're jumping up in the air, right? You might have even given Jeff Wilson Jr. a hug. And, moments like that make stadiums, right? And you have to have those dramatic finishes where loss turns into a win. And you have to have a lot of those, right? You have to, and I think you also probably have to have some brutal losses on top of that. You have to have emotion, and there has to be a lot of it. And that is the one moment that I think of. I'm sure you remember it. You're standing right there near the tunnel.
I definitely do. And there's a lot of those. For those who watched Receiver, George and I have this, fun thing after games where I generally like to tackle them. What I'd love to tell fans is like, look, I'm a fan at heart, right? And so to me, I'm case study or survey group, focus group person number one. Like if it's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for you. It's not good enough for anybody. And, we wake up and we read every publication, we get ready for the game on Sunday. I have the same energy that our fans do. So much so, George, the way it started is George and I, after we won the game in Dallas, which our fans will probably remember as sort of the Dak Prescott kneel down that happened as time expired.
The wild card round. Yep.
I literally ran onto the field. I probably got in trouble from it from the NFL. And I just gave George a big old tackle. And I did so much that I came up on his chin. He didn't have his helmet on. I swear, he thought I broke his jaw, and fans would have hated me for that because he wouldn't be able to play the next game. But David, you've caught me in those moments where, and that's how our whole organization feels. Like it's personal to us, and we're still chasing it. I mean, certainly with this administration or this coaching staff, we're chasing it, and those losses hurt. And you're right, those scar tissues in life, but certainly in fandom, they matter. And all it's going to do is make it that much sweeter when we get to the spot that we need to be. But what I always say, I don't get a ton of chances to speak to the fans, so I appreciate this one from you. But everybody in the business side of this organization feels the exact same way I feel. Now, whether they tackle players is a whole different thing, but we know we're just the stewards. We're the people that get to hold the keys, but that we stand on the shoulders of great people that have come before us, and that we represent the best fan base in the National Football League, and we do it with passion, pride, and energy. And none of that's ever lost on me, why we get to work, where we get to go every single day. And what you saw is a real emotion from me. I don't think my family loves being around me on game day, because it does matter so much. And I hope the fans can see that from our front office, that we do care about them. We care about their experience. We care about these players in a deep way.
You talked about standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm reading these two Walsh books. There's a lot of glare right now. This one, I'm on this one right now. This is the one written by Bill himself. This is more of a biography. And I mean, some of the stories, especially the stories, not just of football team building, but of franchise building, because talking a lot about ADD in there and just how the 49ers set that standard. And obviously it's something I think that the organization is striving to continue doing day after day. It's really cool to see that history. And, as you said, circling back to the stadium, When I first started covering the team in 2017, there just hadn't been a whole lot of opportunity for history in the stadium. I think that 2014 was the first year. We just passed the 10-year anniversary. So 2019, especially 2020 was empty, but 2021, 2022, all the way up through this past season, even this past season had some moments, even though it was a tough one for the 49ers, I think have given the place that sense of character. And now it's going to be renovated and there'll be some new players playing there, 11, maybe 11 draftees. But before the NFL draft happens next week, you've got a big event, and that is the Boston Marathon. We hinted at it a little bit earlier. This is obviously the king of all marathons. It's like the holy grail, right? Have you ever run Boston before, or is this going to be your first time on April 21st?
Not only is it my first time, it's literally my first sanctioned race ever. I've
What?
never, yep.
How did you qualify?
So I knew you were going to ask that. I guess the good and bad of it is I didn't have to qualify because I am raising on behalf of a bunch of different foundations that, I didn't mention today. And so I got an exemption to do so. So kudos to all the people that have qualified. I feel that pressure, by the way. So like, I do want to run it in a certain time. I am very competitive, as you alluded to. And so it's been a fun time, but yeah, I like to choose the hard thing, right? So if you're going to run one and you get one chance at it, maybe I'll go do it again. You might as well run the world's most famous one, arguably the hardest one too. Heartbreak Hills. I'm not looking forward to it, but I've trained quite a bit. Last year, I think I've averaged a little over 80 miles a month out there, which is not, marathoners probably do a little bit more than that, but it's been hard work, a lot of hard work.
I can tell you that I haven't run a marathon. I do some of these long distance swims. We did one from Point Bonita, which is the lighthouse on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, through the Golden Gate back to the city. And you're dealing with they call it the washing machine, all these waves tossing you around, and it's bad. You get seasick and everything. The point is that you're going to hit a certain point where training doesn't matter. You just have to mentally get through it, right? And I think there's something really visceral about that, about overcoming at one point. Are you anticipating, do you know where that might come during the course of this marathon? I know you said it's Heartbreak Hill, right, in the Boston Marathon,
Heartbreak
where
Hill,
that hits a lot of people.
Yeah, mile 20-ish, which basically starts a 3-mile uphill journey. I don't know, David. I don't. I think the thing that I've learned about call it endurance trainers is exactly what you just referred to, which is, your body's capable of more than you ever think.
Yep.
But the mind is a powerful thing. And I've had a lot of people inspire me throughout this that, they just say, hey, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And you talk about just life in general. And so it's been fun to deal with. The furthest I've run is 20, as you probably know. You don't really run a full marathon until you actually run the marathon.
Yes. You can't train for it. Like on a technical level, you could only do so much, but nobody's body can handle 26.2 every day, right? You have to save it for the race.
What I found is you can't do it all. You need to sacrifice certain things. I have a busy schedule and I have 3, young girls at home that, are very active in all their own ways inside of sports and education. But, you start to learn that, things you're capable, right? So I wake up super early, and you and I talked about cold plunging and taking care of your body. And then I go out and I run for an hour and a half, and I get back, I take the girls to school when I'm home, and then I get back and I get into the office around, 8 a.m. And, I probably watch less TV. I probably read a little less than I used to. But, I prioritize the things that, in my opinion, matter, family, my girls, all the things around my job and my health. And that has led me to a fun journey in this. And I have so much respect for our athletes. I have respect for the people that are about to run this thing, because truly mental toughness I talk a lot about what makes someone successful. It's like, IQ and EQ, or emotional intelligence, but, having that level of toughness to get through hard things is something I talk about a lot. As a matter of fact, I talked about this with John Lynch just the other day, as we were talking about name, image, and likeness in college athletics and transfer portals and, the different athletes of today. But, a lot of the things that make people successful today are the same exact things that made them successful 30 years ago, right? Is the willingness to work harder than the next, the willingness to be a great teammate, the willingness to learn and take criticism or feedback. And so I found that in this journey, David, that this is really hard, and that the mind could easily, your body could easily quit, but the mind allows you to keep going. And that, generally speaking, individuals are capable of them much more than what they believe and think of. They frankly just need others to believe in them at times and give them a kind of a leg up or a handout, whatever you may call it. But I've gotten some inspirational quotes and inspirational letters throughout this process that have forged me to keep going.
Well, it's a safety mechanism from your mind, right? It's the limit is set far before the actual limit, so you don't hurt yourself. But the greatness in sports that we've seen, and the greatness in events like this, comes from recognizing that discomfort is not necessarily unsafe. You can't push beyond that, but it takes a certain level of toughness to do it. And you talk about encouragement and some nice letters that you've gotten. I can say this from experience. I lived in Boston for grad school, and I was right on the marathon finish, like close to the finish. Boylston is where it finishes, but I was kind of near Kenmore Square, Calm Avenue, when I lived there for a year and a half. So the two marathon Mondays that I got to experience in Boston were definitely the two best days of each of the 2 years that I was there. It was awesome. Just the vibe in the air, and everybody in the whole town stops whatever they're doing. So there's no work on Marathon Monday in Boston, and everybody just goes and is just cheering on random people as they're running by. And then I spoke to my dad, who ran the Boston Marathon a couple years ago, and he said that you actually get this second wind that you don't get in other marathons because of the spirit of support in the air. And to me, it's really neat to think about what is very inherently an individual sport like running, turning into more of a community effort, team sport, just through the positive energy of support that is kind of conferred in the Boston Marathon. So anyway, that's just something. I haven't run it, but I can tell you that I think you're in for a treat once you passed Heartbreak Hill. If you could just power through it, there's going to be a lot of people lining the side of the road.
I have no idea what it feels like outside of my high school and D3 football days to be cheered on by anybody. So I'm envious of our fans who get to have that and what it means. So I'm looking forward to it. I know I got a lot of family members that are going to be there. And it'll be, I don't know if it'll be fun, but my hope, I got to get to the finish line, and then it'll be exhilarating.
So my trainer the other day, I took him swimming in the bay, and he's been helping me with all the lifts and stuff. And he said, "Okay, we're about to have some type 2 fun." And I said, "What's that?" So have you heard of this type 2 fun?
No.
The type 2 fun, he's like, it's going to suck while you do it, but it's so fun when you're done. That's type 2 fun. So I think that this is type 2 fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like, I talk to my girls all the time, and you try to take words out of their vernacular, right? Which is like can't and never, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to use the word never with great caution in my life. And this is like, I would have never thought I could do this or like embarked on it unless I asked, like, hey, what does it take to go run this? Or how can I get involved? And at the same time, if you told me, as a kid growing up in New Jersey, with, nobody that in his family had ever went to college, that one day I'd be the president of a football team, I'd be like, no, no way. Right. And the reality is, I do truly believe anything's possible in life, and sure, you need it, you can't do everything alone. And the reality is no different than you, right? You mentioned you're a trainer. Like, I've had a lot of people that have helped me. I'd love to say that, yeah, I have the mental fortitude, and the days are every day I want to wake up and run. That's just not true. That's not reality. It's not life. And so I have accountability text threads for people that send me their workouts. And every day I'll be like, damn, I'm tired, or I got something else to do, or you can always find an excuse. And I would have people pick me up throughout this. And, that was another thing, is like, I just wanted to embark on running it first and foremost. And then I was like, you know what? Like, God, how many people just think that they can never get something or never do something, or they can't do this because of this? And the reality is, in certain situations, you realize that things become dire. And so I think it's fascinating. I know how much you train. I know how much it matters to you. And it's not so much about keeping yourself in shape as much. That's a big part of it, but it's about just testing the levels of your own willpower, right?
Mhm.
Of
Discipline,
discipline,
willpower. Yeah.
accountability, all of those things. And I don't know, I'm a big believer in it. And hopefully, if someone else who somebody ran around Lake Como one day and they inspired me to actually go sign up and do this. And so I hope maybe, if I can inspire my girls to see their dad at close to 46 doing this, that they can say to themselves, man, that's one, really cool that my dad's doing that. And two, that like anything in life is capable as long as you put your mind to it and you're willing to work hard enough for it, and you ask people for support along the way, it's possible.
All right, well, we better wrap up because by the time we're done here, I'm going to sign up for a marathon. I'm ready to run through a
Come on,
wall here.
buddy. Come on.
This is not, maybe at some point in the future. Right now we've got a couple tough swims coming up, so those are the ones I'm training for. It's extraordinarily tough to do both, which is why I have the utmost respect for triathletes, because I just think the transition of how you use your muscles to go from a swim to a bike to a run is insane. You're doing three different sports and having to optimize and transition between those three. But before I let you go, a couple other things that we talked about before. It's the 10th anniversary of 49ers EDU now, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's about as old as the stadium.
Yeah, it's so awesome, and when the York family set out to build it, and Danielle York, who's a former teacher, it's really important to her to have an education program, kids K through 8 going through our stadium and learning all about how sports impacts, or, using things that, why does a spiral go further than a wobbly duck, as we always say in sports, but using sports to educate the next generation, and not just the next generation, but those, schools that frankly would have never gone through these programs that we've been able to support. David, you've definitely covered this, and I appreciate not just yourself, but all the media that covers the 49ers on a daily basis. The 49ers have the largest foundation in all of the National Football League. We give back over $10 million now a year, really through education and youth sports participation, which are so very important, I think, to a child's upbringing. I know how much is important to me. And so our STEAM education platform, or EDU, the amount of kids that we've been positively able to impact that will make a difference in this life, and also on the field of play in the Bay Area. I just really want to thank our fan base, because a lot of them donate to it, whether it's, buying tickets to training camp that then goes back into those causes. All I can tell you is that we're going to continue to do that. This year, it's a little tough. We can't do it in the building because of all the renovations that are occurring. So we're taking it out into the classroom, but really, really proud of what we've been able to do. And my hope is that we can double and triple this foundation moving forward, because it's really using the power of the sport to change the lives of the people that need it most in our region, to change and break that cycle, so that people like that, whoever's sitting in my shoes 30 years from now can say that they may have never thought of or dreamed of being there. And it's because one day they got the chance to go to the 49ers stadium. They got the chance to learn and understand the importance of education through sport, and that they're applying for the next job to maybe run the NFL or run some other sport. That would be really cool. And so kudos to the entire York family, or the York family, and all the fans that donate so much of their time and effort and their dollars, whatever it may be, to allow us to get back and make a positive impact.
Well, that's the full circle spirit that we began this with the Guido Family Foundation, and your motivation to do that, to really give back, so that maybe a few decades from now, somebody can be in a position that they might not have even otherwise discovered. So I think that's really cool. Congratulations on launching that, Al. I know that's a big deal for you. Thanks for sharing some of your story. I'm really excited here for the next few months, maybe the next year, maybe the next year plus. There's a lot going to be happening, but first and foremost, good luck on Monday in that marathon.
Thanks, David. Look forward to doing it and get back into the draft room and getting back on the field. Look forward to seeing the fans come July and August at training camp. Really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Are you going to be in the draft room this next week?
I will be there. Looking forward to it.
Uh,
Watching John and Kyle and the rest of the scouts come together and work. It's John always says it's his favorite time of year, but it is really cool to see all of our road scouts, college scouts, pro scouts, coaching staff. It's really neat. Hopefully we'll be able to bring the fans a little bit closer to that process as time goes on. We want to make sure we keep our secrets close to the vest, because we want to draft the players that we want to draft. But I will just tell the fan base, man, you got a really hardworking group. That year, still stings from what we had, and we know we had a lot of injuries, but we got to be better, and we're working hard on your behalf. It'll be a lot of fun in the draft room.
It's got to be really cool from your perspective as the president of the organization. I mean, your job is to oversee so much, and the draft is the one event where everything comes under one umbrella, like physically too, because all the scouts, I'm guessing everybody's back at the facility, right? So you kind of, it's this crazy busy operation, and it's strewn all about the country for a whole year. But on draft weekend, it's like the Super Bowl of franchise operations and franchise logistics.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like everyone needs to come together, right? You have your pro scouts who are looking at other teams and their needs, which is informing us around who might draft which players, right? As the board's starting to come together, you got your college guys who are obviously weighing in on not just the physical attributes of the players that are in the draft, but you got the amount of time that they spent with these students and these kids on campus, their coaches, their high school coaches. I mean, so much work goes into putting the board together, but frankly, all the work that needs to happen. We're not just putting our board together in some ways, we're putting the other 31 teams board together, because, if you're drafting at X position or X, order in the draft, and another team's drafting at Y, you got to think to yourself what they might need. Is it the same that we might need, right? From a value perspective. And so this is where like a pro scout who might be scouting the NFC North might be super important, because they're very knowledgeable about what a certain team might need vis-a-vis our needs and our draft position. So it's just a lot of fun watching our collective staff come together and their level of intelligence and hard work, sort of navigate that process of, we all talk about the board itself and the rankings, but the chess game that goes on throughout the process of frankly understanding teams' needs and where we want to go up or down based off our order and what we think they might need. And so it's just a lot of fun to be in that room and the debates that happen throughout the process. I'm really looking forward to it. And as John and Kyle have alluded to during your time, this, draft's always important, but knowing the amount of picks that we have at the levels of which we have to pick, we had a really good draft last year. We had a lot of tremendous impact players. Hopefully we can build on that, because we know that's the foundation of any roster building is, how we do in the draft.
High stakes poker, world-class chess, and football combined. What's not to love, right?
I love it. Tune in.
Awesome. Al Guido, thanks so much for your time.